How serious do these charges seem to you?
Well, Jake, if prosecutors can prove these charges, that's always the big if, then John Bolton's conduct, to me, is more serious, certainly than we saw in the investigations of Hillary Clinton, of Mike Pence, of Joe Biden, and even more serious than the conduct that got Donald Trump indicted. Let me tell you why. First of all, John Bolton didn't just mishandle this information. He didn't just keep it in a box in a garage or even scattered around a resort. He actively disseminated it to two people, according to the indictment, two family members who were outsiders, who had no security clearance over AOL, which, by the way, was hacked. Second of all, we're talking about the highest level security. The indictment talks about information relating to military attack plans, to missile launches, to foreign leaders, to sensitive sources and methods. And third of all, Bolton's team was not exactly forthcoming about this. There came a point where they learned his email had been hacked by Iran. They notified the FBI, but they omitted the fact that John Bolton was using that account to communicate with these outsiders. So I think if DOJ can prove this, this is big, big trouble for John Bolton.
When President Trump was indicted on federal charges relating to mishandling classified documents in 2022, Bolton said this.
In most offices, you would have a very clear segregation of the sensitive classified material locked in safes, handled very carefully, versus all the unclassified material. This, to me, is more evidence that Donald Trump didn't give much attention to the sensitivity of the classified information.
The indictment contains numerous comments like that by Bolton about other people, including I believe, although the indictment doesn't mention them, it says like public official 1, public official 2, but I believe Hillary Clinton and Pete Hegseth are also criticized. How relevant is that? Why are the prosecutors including those statements in the indictment?
So that's absolutely legally relevant. That's not just intended to rub it in Bolton's face or to show that he's a hypocrite. That's intended to show his criminal intent, because when you have charges like this relating to mishandling or disseminating sensitive classified information, prosecutors have to prove that he acted willfully, meaning he knew he did it. It wasn't just by accident, and also that he knew it was illegal. And those statements by John Bolton make out a very clear case that he, of all people, understood how sensitive this information was and what the law required. So that's going to be an absolutely relevant part of the prosecution's case here.
So obviously, in just the last 3 weeks, we've seen a number of Trump opponents, Trump critics, indicted. We saw the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, with alleged fraud having to do with mortgage. We saw the same thing happen to James Comey, the former FBI director, when it comes to statements he made to Congress that prosecutors allege were false. Do you see this indictment in the same frame, another Trump opponent indicted?
I don't, Jake. I see this as different. There's no question there's longstanding bad blood both ways between Donald Trump and John Bolton. John Bolton also will be able to make a motion to dismiss based on selective or vindictive prosecution. But I see a couple distinguishing factors. One, Donald Trump, in contrast to Letitia James and Jim Comey, Donald Trump did not take to social media and explicitly order the Attorney General to indict them. Bolton was not part of that social media post. But more importantly, Jake, the reporting is, and the indictment seems to reflect, this investigation predates the current Trump administration. And if that's the case, if it goes back to the prior Biden administration, I think that's really going to undermine any malicious prosecution claim that John Bolton has. Also, I should add, the charges here against John Bolton are vastly more serious than the charges that have been made against Jim Comey and Letitia James. So I see this as separate and apart from those.
But his attorney, Abby Lowell, says this was already known to the FBI in 2021, and this had already basically been litigated. You don't think that that's true?
Yeah, I'm not sure where Abby is basing that. I mean, look, in 2021, if Abby Lowell is referring to the incident where John Bolton's emails got hacked by Iran and Bolton's team then contacted the FBI and told them about it, fine. But what he's leaving out of it is that they did not tell the FBI the key details, which was that John Bolton had long been writing down pages upon pages of sensitive information and then emailing it over AOL to these two outsiders. That's what really makes this indictment important. And if they left that out when they contacted the FBI, then no, that was not properly resolved. It's clear that Donald Trump is delighted at this indictment. That said, this is different than the indictments of Letitia James and Jim Comey. What John Bolton is alleged to have done here is deadly serious, would get anyone charged. Let me just go through the highlights. What the allegation is that when John Bolton was the national security advisor, right, one of the most important positions in our government, he would take notes daily on what he had learned that day on a yellow legal pad, go home at night, type up these long, detailed memos amounting to over 1,000 pages, and then disseminate them to two people who we now are reporting were his wife and his daughter, and send it out over AOL. That AOL email gets hacked by Iran. When his team reports that hack to the FBI, they don't mention the fact that he was using that email to disseminate this highly classified information about military strikes, about weapons, about tactics, about sources and methods. He's putting it out there to outsiders with zero security clearance. That kind of conduct is going to get anyone indicted.
Yeah, and some of those documents, according to the indictment, ended up being printed and were found in his home. That's one of the reasons that when they executed, it seems like this search warrant of his home, they found them. Yep. And it led to these charges.
Well, keep in mind, sorry, if I can, two search warrants were approved by two different federal judges. So now two federal judges and a grand jury have found probable cause.
He pleaded not guilty to 18 charges relating to unlawful mishandling of classified information. The Trump advisor turned adversary's arraignment lasted less than 20 minutes, and the judge told Bolton that he faces up to 10 years in prison if he's convicted.
On or about July 15, 2018, his wife and daughter text Bolton, "Do we get a diary today?" Bolton responds, "Don't think I can do it on this trip." Bolton later added, "Too much going on. I've done much of Friday in London because I don't want to take too many notes and wanted to get it down before I forgot." Days later, Bolton writes, "More stuff coming," sending a 24-page document described what he learned while national security advisor. Less than 3 hours later, he sends his wife and daughter a follow-up message saying, "None of which we talk about." In response, one of the two responding with, "Shh."